Aloha, beautiful beings, and welcome to another episode of the Yoni Havana Podcast, where we explore consciousness, looking into how things work in the universe so we can enjoy life more and become more whole. If you're looking for support on your journey to wholeness, more gratitude in your life, and alignment with your divine purpose, please reach out to me via my website, Instagram, or Telegram. I am now taking new clients, offering guidance in expanded states journeys, holistic lifestyle practices, and mindset coaching. On to the show. My guest today is advanced Kambo practitioner and one of the pioneers of the biohacking movement, Todd Shipman. In this episode, Todd shares his unique, gentle, and scientific approach to Kambo, also known as frog medicine, how quantum technology helps clear negative energies and enhance athletic performance, his personal spooky, supernatural experiences, the dangers of extreme biohacking, and much more. If you find value in this conversation, please share with someone you love. So enjoy this groundbreaking and mind-blowing conversation with Todd Shipman. Aho. Todd, thank you for coming on to the show. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You know, we met, I think the first time was in PaleoFX 2019. Spoke for a few minutes. I was in San Francisco. I was recording my first podcast with my partner then, co-host, Matt Carresco. You were biohacker Todd at the time. I don't know if you know, how you go by right now, as you've been shifting a bit, and I'd love to hear about that. But we had the intention of recording then, and then actually I moved out of San Francisco. I had my first kid, my daughter, and we didn't get to do that. And actually, that's just like over 4 years after that we're getting to do it. So I'm honored, and it's cool. So yeah, thank you for being here. I'm excited for this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I very clearly remember that time. I remember us talking, and I think kind of at the same time I left San Francisco just not too much long after you did. Not that I even knew you had left, but I left for the East Coast as well. But for me, it was mainly the COVID aspect of here of California, and I don't think sometimes people understand the chaos. Like, you actually had to live here in certain counties to be very different. But the straw that broke our big camel's back here with us is we got a ticket for hiking in the Marin Headland. And it was such an illegal thing to do that they had 2 cops blocking in our cars and waiting for us to come back from our hike during COVID. And that was kind of, at the time, my wife was just kind of argumentative with them, not aggressive, but just kind of what are you doing? Like, we're outside in nature, and they were just like, "Ma'am, we will detain you."
Wow.
And it was just really what is this getting to? Like, they're threatening to arrest her. So that was our thing. We moved to Florida, and yeah, just to touch really fast, because I don't think I really ever talk about this. I've always wanted to make some post or whatever, but I would say disconnected myself from the biohacking community. I was so involved and obsessed in that concept. I think I took a step back. I changed my name, which isn't a big deal, to That Odd Todd, because I really like to focus more on odd things anyways, and the nickname was always Odd Todd. But I think the biohacking community can get really wild. And there's some things that can be fun and poked at, but also I think sometimes it can be a little too obsessed. JP Sears, back almost in 2016, hit it on the nose. He has a YouTube video where he's basically making fun of Dave Asprey. So Dave Asprey paid him to make this video about him. Not many people know that fact, but he's like, "Oh, I'm doing all my morning routine, and by the time I'm done with my morning routine, it's 7 p.m." And it's like, that's the reality. And it's like, you see these people online that are like, and then again, it's not that it's always that bad, but I took it too seriously. So I'd be on a rebounder in a sauna with, intranasal red light therapy and neuro beats going on at the same time. And like, I realized I like showing people this is what you're supposed to do to be healthy, and it's not. So I kind of, I enjoy my beer, I enjoy a cigar, and I enjoy pizza, so I want to kind of show that life too, because I've been the extreme side. I used to run 200-mile ultra marathons and have a 6-pack and work out 4 or 5 hours a day and run 4 hours a day. And that was sustainably not healthy for me. So I've kind of shifted in mindset. So I'm no longer biohacker Todd, mainly because of that. If I would make things, I one time posted, I was at a light show at night on a date, and I posted a video of the light show at night. and someone commented, "I hope you have your blue light blockers on." And it was such like a, like a whoa, like I'm enjoying the moment. But someone was so focused on how my life should be if I'm posting it on Instagram that I should have blue light blockers on while at a laser light show at night. I don't want to be that, nor do I want to promote that. So I've shifted over, but I still love everything alternative health. But the biohacking world, I think people are really on this competition of what's the wildest things they can do. And I'm totally to blame for that too, because I've done things that have nearly killed me, like just to show off and show people like what can you do at once. Oh, you can do an EFS machine with PEMF and also get on a vibration plate, and what's it going to do? It's going to blow up, or I've done some pretty dumb things, so I don't want to really promote that anymore.
Thank you for the clarification. And, to the audience, I'm still using biohacking practices. I never got too deep into it, but I wear earth runners so I can ground while I'm walking, especially when I'm, walking on earth. So get something while I'm not barefoot. I have a cold plunge. I'm standing on a grounding mat right now. I have a few things that promote and help me stay more focused. What the biohacking practice that I use are to just feel better in the moment and have more energy to do the things that I love. And I think as you touched on the light show, most nights, yes, I will not turn on blue light and have my blue light blockers on if I'm looking at a screen, which I don't have many of them. And I do want to have the best sleep that I can so I can wake up and like do this podcast, and have the energy and be as present as I can with my family. And this is why I do these things. So I do and have seen that people got very much into the toys too, with the PMFs and all kinds of toys that I actually haven't really heard about. A lot of the first time Dave Asprey, kind of clan. And I think it was a great movement towards where people are now. The pendulum has shifted more towards the middle of knowing like, okay, these are the practices that I enjoy, that it can promote this lifestyle. And if I'm not mistaken, we'll get into it, like Lila Quantum. I mean, a bunch of these things are kind of biohacking. And I do want to get into that also with the Kambo. But before that, I would love to hear, how did you get into, you were one of the first biohackers, at least known to humanity. How did you get into it?
Yeah, and to preface, you're right, because maybe I didn't explain that right. Like, I still have all the same stuff. I cold plunge. I have multiple saunas. I plate. I wear blue light blockers, all that too. So I guess more I should say I like to step back from the extreme stuff. The $40,000 PEMF machines that aren't relatable to other people and all that. So, but and that's where I think we met with like primal hacking, like that stuff, grounding, all that I think is more sustainable. So I like to promote that more stuff, like things that are more free and people can actually use without having to have a lot of money. But I actually got into biohacking from, I was always in competitive sports with no concept of cause and effect on lifestyle and diet. And it's amazing to think that I was so successful at certain things. And, at night, literally would eat 3 pounds of Mike and Ike candy, Mike and Ike's, and have Taco Bell and be able to wake up and go perform athletically. So I think my first time ever being exposed to it was I had run 100-mile race, the Western state, well, it was before Western states, and after running 100 miles, usually for the next few days, you can't walk. Like you shuffle your legs, everything hurts so much. You've been running for anywhere from 15 hours to 30 hours straight. Everything hurts. And I came to the finish line, and these people was at the time like a mobile cryo machine. And they just blasted my hips. They blasted my hamstrings and calves. I was like, oh, this is nice. It's cold. And it was basically an ice bath, but a cryo machine. And I noticed that like the next day I could walk fine. And it was kind of like, what the heck is this? Like seeing to the point where I can recover faster and I can start training for my next race sooner. And that kind of is where it all opened up, because it's like, well, there's this, what else is there? Oh, and then it just sounds so embarrassingly silly now, but to think like, oh, if I eat right, oh my gosh, like, I can change and I can recover faster and have natural energy. And that kind of got me into it. I'm such an extremist, which also goes back to the dangers of me in the biohacking world. Is like, I'm just 100 miles an hour with every thing I do. So once I found that out, I was like, what else is there? Oh my gosh, red light therapy. Oh my gosh, what else is there? PEMFs, and like just kind of going down the rabbit hole and buying everything I try. I'm the guy online. I'm in an ice bath with neural beats going on at the same time with something else, and is not really sustainable or necessary. But that's kind of how I got into the biohacking, and then just working with Bulletproof on video educational content creation and getting to do things behind the scenes for education. Because one thing I do love is education, because I think all this stuff is so cool, but a lot of the terms that are used, can my 70-year-old mom understand it? Probably not. Can my 10-year-old kids understand it? Probably not. So I like to find a method, vocabulary for people so they can understand all this cool stuff. Because if information goes over your head, you feel dumb. And once someone feels dumb, you've kind of lost them. And they're not, some people are also like, hey, I don't understand that. What does that mean? But some people just kind of go, They're not hearing anything you're saying. So you've kind of lost that ability for them to utilize what you're teaching them. So I've kind of created this niche of education for people and working with companies now on this. So marketing, partnerships and stuff, like showing like how to present the information, the science, clinical studies they got, and present it in a way that everyone can understand it.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that. I'm curious, is this a trait that you've had as a kid of going extreme on everything? What's there?
Yeah, I think it was kind of the way I was raised. I'm not so much about my parents, but where I was raised. Everything's always been extreme. I grew up in Houston, Texas, and the sports mentality there is insane. In 5th grade, I remember basically the teacher telling you, like, do you want to be in, and I'll say in nicer words, but with PE or man PE? And that was in 5th grade, putting us into football and having us do obstacle courses and, deadlifting, bench pressing, all this stuff, like in the extreme. My football coach was a retired Navy SEAL. So nothing was normal. It was, we were doing 3-a-days or 4-a-days instead of the 2-a-days. And it kind of just taught me to take everything, not taught me, like, but it taught me, like, to create this method of everything is extreme. So, like, I went into sports for track, and I would go all out in track. So I did the 400-meter hurdles. I always found the hardest things. I don't know why, but 400-meter, 400-meter hurdles legitimately is the most difficult thing I think you could ever do. Even though it's 400 meters, like, you're doing 400 meters of hurdles. And then I would do shot put, and, it was very opposite side. But then I got into soccer, and soccer, I could train 50, 60 hours a week in soccer. I had, one-on-one training and everything, just to be the best of everything is always I wanted to do. And it's the only way I knew. So everything was always extreme, 100%. I don't go into things lightly. And I kind of learned, like that serves me in some places, and some places it definitely doesn't serve me. It's finding that balance, but it's always, hit the ground running and excitement. I don't know if that's like an ADHD type of thing or what it is, but it serves me in places, and some places it definitely doesn't.
Where do you think it doesn't serve you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have any specific details, but I think it's just more like just the sustainability of lifestyle, where like I burn myself out, where I can tell you all these things I did in the past, and I don't want to touch myself with a 10-foot pole. I don't want to play soccer ever again the rest of my life, because I'm so, I've ordained myself with something so much that now I'm just like, like I don't want to watch football on TV. I hate it. I played it for so long. I was so obsessed with it that now I look back and was like, I don't want to do any of that stuff anymore as far as like what I used to do. So like I hit a point where I burn out, and then it's almost like it's cut out of my life. That's probably where I think it can like not serve me, is I need to find a way to be like, okay, I want this in my life for 20, 30 years, not just.
I hear you. But it sounds like you've been doing actually pretty well with the biohacking of stopping the extreme stuff and keeping the things that do serve you. And that perhaps some of the maturity that comes for you with age and the wisdom. So I'll give you kudos on that one as I'm reading that. Did you grow up with siblings?
Yeah, I have one older sister, and it's a very similar thing. She was in professional sports, on the soccer, national team and the Olympic team, all that. So she's kind of the same way. I believe, though, I'm not saying that about my parents. My parents didn't really. I think it was just the environment and the schools and Texas sports kind of incubate that incredibly, And then, again, it's good and bad in some places, but yeah.
How did you end up in California?
So I was born and spent my first 9 or 10 years in Washington State. And then I moved over to Houston, Texas, and then to San Francisco. My dad worked for Chevron. So every time that Chevron bought out a larger company, so in 1999, Chevron bought Texaco, and they moved the headquarters of Chevron from Texaco to San Francisco area. So moved there. So in 99, I was like 18 years old, I think, 17 or 18 years old. I moved to California, and I was there until 2020, and then COVID, and then we left for Florida for a few years and just came back last month, basically. So we moved back to California, Northern California, with a lot of caveats on what we like. If we were moving back, here's what needed to happen, and all that stuff aligned up perfect for us. And so we're just about an hour and a half north in Sonoma County now of San Francisco.
I'm curious, as we were talking, I think before we started recording, California was very restrictive, even in the great outdoors during, the 2020 or however, 2021. Do you have any plan on what you would do if a similar situation happens again?
Yeah. And I won't be surprised if it doesn't happen. Like, I would be more surprised if it doesn't happen. And that was kind of our plan here is we moved out, before we were living in neighborhoods and have neighbors. I mean, we can't, again, I really don't think people, unless you lived here, understood the chaos. Like, you could not take your dog on a walk. There was $1,000 snitch reward in our county where, if you came over to my house and my neighbors saw you, they could call authorities and they'd get $1,000 reward, and it was like, if you took exits, the police would want to stop and look at your ID to make sure you lived in the area and then question you, why are you out? What are you doing? You need to be at home. And it was really crazy. So where we are now, we wanted property. We wanted to be out by ourselves, and not even so much an exact political, but we wanted to be in a little more conservative, because we literally went from living in the most liberal city in the world, factually, and we unknowingly moved to the most conservative county factually in the country. So we went from the extremes, and wasn't on purpose. It wasn't a political statement on our end, but we kind of figured we want to live somewhere in the middle of that, So where we're at, it's more agricultural. It's wine country. We're surrounded by vineyards, and it's very different. It's more in the country, and we wouldn't be as affected, I don't think, as far as community wise, personally, if something like that occurs, because, we have garden, we have food, we can be way more sustainable here where we're at. And the only thing that still surprises me, though, is the amount of people that wear masks. The majority of people here still wear masks, and it's still kind of, it's not, I still don't get used to seeing it. I walk into a store and I'm the minority without a mask, and people are like, stay 6 feet away. It's like, it's 2023. What is going on? I had someone yesterday at Whole Foods get upset at me for getting in her space. It's like, I just touched her cart because her cart was in the way of the bone broth I wanted. So,
wow, sucks to be stuck in that frequency of fear, really sucks. And we'll get into Leland now, how that can help very soon. I live in San Francisco, in the Bay Area for 80 years, most of them in San Francisco. And I left in May 2019 just because we had our first daughter, and we were like, San Francisco didn't seem like the best and easiest place to raise kids. And most of our friends were not having kids yet around our age. So we wanted to live somewhere more suburban and closer to the family that we have in Florida. We chose to be in Atlanta, where my wife used to live after college, and had a big community of friends. And lo and behold, a few months after, none of those friends wanted to hang out. So, and part of the reason why I'm doing the work that I'm doing now, which I was doing a good amount of tech work before, and now I mainly do guidance work in all kinds of spaces, and holistic lifestyle and awakening, and a lot of retreats, actually men's retreats in California, based on the legal climate. It's just such an amazing place in that way, that the people are asleep and awakened at the same time. The polarity is very strong in that state, especially in Northern California and Marin County and such. So very, very interesting how this whole thing is going on. But yeah, I mean, it's more fascinating to me now than upsetting. I think a lot of people are getting upset that there's a big, let's say, portion of society that would be fearful, especially at this point. And there's a lot of judgment from both sides. The virtual signaling, and I'm doing the best to protect somebody, and another person is risking it. And it's definitely, I think it's all for a lot of growth has happened, and I would not give up that time, that how much I expanded from that challenge. And I think how much the world has expanded and has grown. So yeah, that's that on that one. How did you end up in that place in Florida that you said was the most conservative county? How did that happen?
Yeah, so how we ended up in Florida really was we couldn't, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little later, is Kambo, because I was a Kambo practitioner and I couldn't work. I couldn't do, like, again, I couldn't come over to your house. You couldn't come to my house in California. This wasn't going to happen. So we started just driving around the country, and we had a Prius at the time, which was amazing, 55 miles a gallon. And back when that all COVID hit, it literally cost us something like, I don't remember, $150 or something to go across the country. It was nothing. So gas was like $1.20, besides in California. But everywhere else, you go to Texas, gas was like, $1.10. Some places it was wild. But we just started driving around the country. One time I had a fairly good sized following on Instagram. I was like, hey guys, we're going to be in Houston. Hey guys, we're going to be at whatever. And we just kind of made our way through on that. And we were, just trying to get out of California. No intentions on actually leaving for good, but we couldn't work. So we couldn't pay bills, couldn't do anything. I didn't want to be a person sitting at home, getting unemployment check from California. I wanted to work. So we drove around, and we came to a place. We were in Austin, I think, actually, and we were going to head to Washington, D.C. to do Kambo on specific people. And a wellness mama, Katie Wells, reached out to me on Instagram, and she's like, hey, I've always wanted to try a Kambo. Can you come to Florida? And two things. I had no idea who Katie Wells was. And I also had no interest in going to Florida. But we went, and I just fell in love. It was like we had spent, during that time, probably 2 months of dark clouds from the fires here in Marin area. So we didn't have any sun. Went down to LA. They had fires. Like, we drove the whole way across the country at that time, and it was all just natural disasters. You had Hurricane David and mud, we call those, like, in the desert, the desert storms or the sandstorms. Everything was filled up. And by the time we finally hit Florida, it was the only time where there was sun. It was legitimately like, as we're coming through Alabama into Florida, there's sun, and we go out into the water. And the sand is white as snow. The water is clear as glass. It's the Gulf, so there's no waves. It's like a nice lake. And I was like, this is incredible. Like, I finally got sun on my face. Jill and I literally went into the ocean with our full clothes on. It just felt so good. So we did Kambo there with Katie, right at the Panhandle on the beach for a few days. And then we left to go back to Washington, D.C. And then Katie called me back and was like, hey, can you come spend a week here? Like, we feel so amazing from Kambo. Can you come spend a week? I have a bunch of friends that are going to come out. We're all going to do it together. I was like, that's great. She's like, we have a beach house. You can stay there. Like, awesome. And we did. And we stayed, I think, about a week. And it was just like, what are we doing in California? Like, we can't work in California. You're paying $8,000 a month for like a 2-bedroom apartment. And where we were at that point, it was like, you could get a 3-bedroom apartment, 3-bathroom apartment. All of them had walk-in closets, brand new, for $1,500 a month on the beach. So it was like, we can be sustainable here instead of California, which is so financially demanding. So we decided to pick ourselves up and move to Florida. And we didn't know what 30A was, which is where we lived. We didn't know anything about politics. We didn't know. It's not interest to me really at that point, but we moved there, and it became an amazing place for Kambo, so people could fly in and could spend a week there with us and kind of really start to heal. And that's kind of how the Kambo really got so popular, because we were having people fly in from all around the world. At that point, it was mainly just all around the country, but people were coming because it was more free there, and it's a great place to heal. So that's how we ended up in Florida.
That's awesome. I don't know the story of how you became a Kambo practitioner. Tell me, please.
So it's an interesting one. So, my wife was the one that introduced me to all of this stuff, like the plant medicines, earth medicine, animal medicine, all of that, because, she was in AA for 10 plus years and always battling with some form of addiction. And AA is incredible and she still loves it. But one thing I think that it falls short, and this is me as a spectator from the outside, I've never been involved, but it's like, they always tell you like you're powerless. Like you have an allergy and you're powerless. Instead of being empowering about helping with your addiction, and so she wanted to find a way to actually like release from addiction. So she discovered plant medicine, and this isn't on a recreational level, like this is therapeutic levels, like working with professionals. It's not just on a Friday night, let's go pop some mushrooms or San Pedro. It's in a professional environment with someone who's been doing this for decades. But she found, first she found was psilocybin, and, her 80 pounds, she did like 9 grams, and it completely rewired her in her mindset, her ego and everything. And she realized there was something to this. So then she went and tried another plant medicine a little later, Aya, and then San Pedro and all this stuff. And, her mentor at the time was like, listen, like you can do all this. It's amazing, but you need to find something that's going to physically cleanse you. So you should try this thing called Kambo. So she did. And it, for her, and I guess like this is how we got into it, is because it was so that the result in Kambo were so amazing for her that she knew she wanted to do it again. But we had a lot of experiences with practitioners that we just weren't ideal to us, but we liked the results from the Kambo, so we would continue to do them. And that's how I was like, well, how about I just learn how to serve, and I'll go through the certifications and the training so that I can serve you and me, and we can kind of do it in a way that we prefer it. And that's what we did. But then when COVID hit, at the same time, I was like, well, I guess I should start, with the virus and the antiviral abilities with Kambo and the anti-anxiety benefits from Kambo. Like people around the country need this. And that was kind of our mentality of traveling around on helping people with the antiviral, anti-depression, anti-anxiety benefits that you get from Kambo. And it kind of just blew up. It was never a plan of mine as far as like, I'm going to get certified so I can start like serving everyone. It was really just for Jill. And that's where I think I'm very different than other people when it comes to Kambo practitioners for multiple reasons. One is I'm a white guy. I've been trained by shamans. I've been trained by these people, but I am not a shaman, and I do not pretend to be a shaman. And we had some experiences where people were, as far as the practitioners, this wasn't jiving with me. I'm very science-minded. I love, there's so much science behind Kambo. There's 40 years of research for these peptides, but there's also other benefits from it that we just don't know how to measure. But like, again, just how my experience was as an environment with Kambo, I just felt could change. It's a very intense medicine. And I remember this woman who I truly respect so much, and she's probably one of the smartest people, but she did Kambo on me my first time. And then she did it on a second time. And the second time she told me, she was like, well, your first time was too easy for you. So this time I tried to break you. And I just remember in my head being like, man, if I'm like, I never want to be in a position where I'm being vulnerable and sensitive. Someone has that mentality. I always want to feel safe. That's just me personally. Like I always just want to feel safe if I'm doing something, and I don't want to have it in the back of my head. This person's like, give them more, because that's exact opposite of who I am. When I do Kambo too, I think less is more. So I always tell people I have no interest in making this more extreme than it needs to be. Now that being said, that's my personal experience, my personal opinion. Because when you go through trainings, they'll be like, Kambo needs to be punched in the nose. Like it needs to really break someone down. And I could see that to a point, but there's really no science showing that the harder Kambo is, the more benefits. Like, so I'm not for everyone for sure with the Kambo world. I get a lot of pushback, but at the same time, I did create an experience that I would want from someone who, is an authority figure of any type of plant medicine, earth medicine, animal medicine. Once again, like I want to always feel safe and protected by that person. So that's what we aim to do. And we do it a little different usually than other people.
Yeah, I want to get into that. I do want to go over a few definitions here and bring the audience who may have not heard of Kambo up to speed on everything. So first of all, just the question that I have before we get into that is, it sounds like the traditional teaching is about breaking a person, is about breaking their ego, surrendering. I'm not following, because as you're saying, with the plant medicine experiences and some of them that I hold space for, it is always about the safety and comfort. So somebody can actually surrender in that comfort, not in feeling any sort of danger or any sort of like not the ability usually to surrender and physically, emotionally, and all the other ways, mentally, spiritually, is with much ease and nurturing. There's somebody like Mother Earth or somebody in the flesh kind of living as Mother Earth, with that usually feminine or even masculine energy, kind of holding them and saying like, you're safe to be vulnerable, not the opposite. I'm curious, what do you think were they were these people saying about breaking a person?
Yeah, sorry, I actually went on a tangent there. For one, I went from one subject to the other without any smooth transition. Sorry about that one, but yeah, I think that's what Kambo is. It's really a shock value or like a wow factor people like to use with Kambo, and I find that like when we did our YouTube documentary, like we butted heads a lot with the directors and producers because they wanted to make this like a super dangerous, crazy medicine, and it's not. But I think people play into that with this Kambo is aggressive. And it's not comfortable. It's probably, as far as on a physical aspect, hands down, it's one of the strongest medicines, intense medicines that you could do in that world. But I figure if you can do Kambo or something, you can do anything on a physical level. It's a beat down. But like, I also don't like, we work with such fragile people and physically fragile people that I don't want them to have to experience this for later. Yeah, I think it's just part of like Kambo is intense. It is. I think they just want it to be more like I used to do. Like when I do Kambo, I can sit there and breathe into it. And I try to meditate with it, and it's not comfortable. But I remember one of the training practitioners telling me that I'm manipulating the medicine, and I can't do that. Like, don't do it. You just it needs to punch you in the face. Like that was the thing. I was like, hey, like, when I do Kambo, I can just like breathe through it and make it a more of a euphoric experience as much as you could with Kambo than some like violently aggressive purging and all that. But they told me like, no, you shouldn't do that. Like you're manipulating the math, and it just needs to punch you in the face, basically is what I was told. And I think a lot of people that's how they can upplay with Kambo is, if you see like the clickbait on YouTube, it'll be like, I tried Kambo and it aged me 50 years or something. And it has like millions of because of it. So it's just like her purging and her facial tissue rupturing and getting toxins and stuff, So like people really play on that like shock value and the extremity the Kambo can be for sure, because it's not pleasant, But like I said, when I did a docu-series on YouTube, and while the participants were amazing people, the producers and the directors were really all about like making this just like a very dangerous, like extreme medicine, or it was like, it's not what we're trying to show here. So,
well, I get that content creators want to create something sensational, and usually what people, especially as we know with the news and other things, what they pay more attention to is like an accident on the road or some sort of bad news. The good news or the more subtle experiences they kind of brush off. That's not that interesting. Whereas that real deep pain or danger they pay attention to. Unfortunately, perhaps that's our fight or flight response is much more apparent and perhaps exciting. Yeah. Okay. So I want to go over a few definitions there. So I did do an episode on Kambo with our mutual friend, Matt Kaufman, and actually had my first experience of Kambo 2 weeks ago with him at his place in Florida, which I've heard about it 6 years ago from when I was working for Mike Bledsoe, and he was doing it quite a few times to get some deep cleanses going. I was thinking about it. There were almost no practitioners at the time. I was going to go to Sedona, meet this guy. His schedule was not easy. Anyways, I do want to go over like what's Kambo and what are peptides, kind of to get everybody up to speeds on those, and then I want to dive in a little bit deeper.
Yeah, so Kambo is basically, it's this defense mechanism secretion from this frog, the giant monkey tree frog, or the Philomedusa bicolor. It's an Amazonian frog. And it is a defense mechanism, basically, that it releases as a sweat. If something like a bird or a snake comes near the frog, it'll release this. And if the frog gets eaten by the bird or the snake, it will potentially be fatal for those animals. It just happens to be that you have these bioactive peptides in there, right? Which are like part of like short chain amino acid into a protein. But it's a bioactive peptide, which means it's beneficial for us, for mammals. So The wildest thing always to the stuff to me is how they find this stuff out. Like, it's killing other animals. So who decided, to apply this onto a body and see what it's going to do? But so there's hundreds of these bioactive peptides in the Kambo secretion. It looks like a little wasabi ball, basically, that you would apply on yourself topically. So if you want, we can kind of talk about what the experience is like, or you can share yours. But basically, these very superficial burns are done on your skin just to take off the very first layer, open up so that the Kambo dots can later on get absorbed into that. And all of the burn dots were. But you need to fast. You have to have it's 100% legal. It's a non-psychedelic. So I always want to preface with that. It gets confused with bufo a lot, but it's not the same thing. And, you fast. You don't want to have any food in your stomach. It's not really for a spiritual purpose. You could make it into that, but it's not. It's really just so that you don't. Because you're going to be purging, throwing up later. And you don't want to have a full stomach. You don't want to have a steak or something in your stomach as you're throwing up. So you drink about 2 liters of water, and then the Kambo gets applied onto you. And then your body starts to interact with these peptides. And you have specific peptides that lower the blood pressure. And that's long-term, which is really good. But your physiological response, when the peptides lower your blood pressure, your body's response is to raise your heart rate. So one of the first things you're going to feel physically with Kambo is your heart rate's going to fly up. It's going to go up to like 120 within about a minute. This goes up. You feel your heartbeat in your ears. You have vasodilation peptides that kick in, so your face gets really red. You get really hot, like you're in an infrared sauna. Feels kind of like a nice and flush. And then you have these vasoconstriction peptides that also kick in. You get really pale. Tons of other peptides are working at the same time or being absorbed. You feel different sensations, but that's usually you start to purge, and you purge up some incredible stuff. And it's about a 15 to 30 minute process. You can see a lot of these processes online. Just be mindful of like the clickbait of it, but in general, the cool thing is like I said before, like, as a practitioner, our job is just to create a safe space. That's the only importance I have. Kambo is going to do what Kambo is going to do. I have no impact on how the medicine's going to affect you. So you watch people, their experiences should all be the same. Just depends on like how the environment is set up. Because sometimes on YouTube, you watch them, they do in the jungle, which is amazing. There's guys standing in the river doing Kambo. As long and as much as the experiences I have with Kambo, I could never fathom doing Kambo in the river while standing up. But that's what some people do. So, but it's very physically cleansing. There's tons of research. You have peptides that are about 4,000 times stronger than morphine as a painkiller. You've got antibacterial, antifungal, anti-parasite peptides, all of these things. I have things like, because I like to quantify this type of stuff, and like where Jill, my wife, we had her blood test before Kambo. She has formaldehyde poisoning, mercury, cobalt, copper, all these different types of problems in her blood. And after doing Kambo is the main source of anything for many months, we came back a year later and she was clean of everything. And that was really all we were doing was Kambo. It helps kill like candida. I've just seen some very wild through it. But again, that's just on the science side. There's a lot of other things it does. Force cathartic, so it helps with traumas, helps release emotions. There's so many things. And I mean, if you're welcome to, talk about your experience, if it was more physical or emotional. Because one thing I want to say, and this is theoretical, but I've done so many of these, there has to be truth to it, is I think like people's experience can be different because I think it's what peptides they absorb. Because we work with addicts, we work with people with extreme pain, and when they do Kambo, they almost fall asleep because they're getting all the dermorphin peptides and it's an opioid. So like when they're doing Kambo, they literally are nodding off, falling asleep. And for someone who doesn't experience pain, they'd have a hard time believing someone in Kambo would fall asleep. But that's the difference. So like I can aesthetically watch, I don't ever like to assume, but I could watch you in your experience and be like, okay, yeah, you got a lot of digestive issues because this happened, or you were falling asleep, so I know you have a lot of physical pain. And I never want to assume it because the time I do assume it, I'm going to be wrong, but I'll act after, but it gives me a clear idea. It's like, man, okay, you were getting the dermesteptin peptides because it went right to your intestines. And clearly you needed all your gastric acid removed. And, there's so much fascinating stuff. It kind of can be overwhelming on how to like talk about it, but like there's peptides that it's like an oil change for your digestive system. It pumps out all your gastric acid, your bile, your pancreatic secretion so that you purge it up and start fresh new. Create a myoelectric stimulation in your intestines that cleanse everything out, which tells me there's things going on in your intestines. Because some people don't have any intestinal stimulation during Kambo. Some people, that's all they have. So to me, I believe your body is taking in what it needs. So it can be very different.
I will share my experience, but before I forget, I want to ask 2 questions. So for your wife, during that year with the blood work, how many ceremonies are we talking about to get that she got clean from so many toxins?
Probably like 15 or 20, maybe more, smaller ones. Because while we were traveling, we did what we call microdosing, where we just do 1 dot for a few minutes. And the goal when you do that is to not throw up. So you just have it on for a few minutes to absorb. Because we are working with so many people who actively had COVID. One thing we found with Kambo is COVID would pretty much get flushed out of your system within like 12, 24 hours. It will bring your smell and your taste back instantly. So people who had COVID that lost their any taste or smell, it brought it back instantly within seconds of having Kambo on them. They could smell the sage and stuff again. It was so crazy. They could taste stuff. So we are doing it. We were around people all day that had COVID. So we were doing it a lot more than most people would. And she also had really bad Lyme. And she didn't have any symptoms, which doesn't mean it's cured. But, that was her main reason for doing all that. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, but I'd say probably like back then she was doing a full ceremony once a month at least. And now we do it probably every 4 months.
Some people ask me about the dots that I have on my arm, and I use a good amount of red light to help with the scars because to some extent, and it's not that I care too much, but I'm a walking billboard. I'm wearing shorts or a bathing suit most of the time. Be like, hey, what are those dots? I mean, different spots for your wife, for people that do it that often. Any suggestions on how to heal those scars a bit more for aesthetics and other reasons? More fast or more,
Yeah, we have people that are in very professional settings, and we have people who are like, hey, listen, and I always feel really bad. We're like, hey, like my family can't know I'm doing this. So we have like certain spots we can put it on. But really, like if you don't want to have the scarring, instead of using the dragon's blood, you would want to use like manuka honey or even like a caprylic acid, so C8 or coconut oil, something that's more antibacterial. Because the reason you're putting that red dragon's blood on is really just for the antibacterial benefits of it so it doesn't get infected. But you could do things like brain octane, really. If you don't realize, brain octane or any kind of C8 base is antibacterial, antimicrobial. So you can use it on scars. And so we have to put that on, and then we just do red light. And, UV light, so midday sun is where you're going to get the scarring. So we tell people if they don't want to scar, you just don't want to be outside during the midday having that area exposed. Now, that is very difficult for us in Florida since we spent all day outside, so Jill has scars all over, like her back. We do on like chakra points or arms all over. So, but the best way really is just to stay out of UV. So, you have a red light panel, do that as much as possible. Manuka honey, C8 and stuff prior instead of using the dragon's blood, which is the red stuff that scabs.
Good to know. And that's good to know because I was using the dragon's blood for other like wounds and cuts before, and it does leave quite actually a mark. I was pretty upset with it. I have one on my arm here from just touching the oven. It's a big one. I thought that's the point is that I'm not going to have a scar, and I put it on my wife at another point. She's like, that thing it's not only not working, it's not good. So I was disappointed. I got it from,
it's just like I tell people it's a homeopathic version of Neosporin. It works. It has its usages, especially for people with ulcers or stuff like to drink it. It'll help scar. Yeah, but it's not like to remove the visual aspect of a scar. It'll, because of the color. It's a sap. It's a tree sap. Very accessible. You can buy on Amazon, as well. But it's probably most likely because of the dye, which is natural. It's not an additive dye, but it's the color of that red will make it more, for sure, scar.
Yeah.
But it is good for It's just like Neosporin. It's a clean version of Neosporin, so it has its benefits. But at the other end, yeah, if you don't want to scar, I wouldn't recommend using it.
How many ceremonies have you guided? Kambo ceremonies?
I mean, I'm probably just almost at like 2,600. We've done so many.
Whoa.
Very lucky to have that experience, whether we're traveling places. We were putting about 150,000 miles on our car a year for the past like 2.5 years, driving around all over the country, doing Kambo ceremonies every day, multiple a day. And if we weren't traveling, people were always at our house. Like every single day, we'd have multiple people, whether they're local people or people coming from all around the country. Just all walks of life. People would come and do Kambo. And, it's amazing because the amount of things that we have seen, some things you just can't quantify. And I'm very quantifiable on things. I like to say, this is the numbers, here's the data beforehand, and then here's after. And, we can do that with a lot of things with Kambo. Like we're working on eyes, people with pain, people with Hashimoto's, we get before and after blood tests, and people with thyroid issues, Kambo, we see the numbers, the blood work and stuff, and it's amazing to see the benefits people get from Kambo. And I love to anything we can quantify, because I feel like people look at Kambo and they think if they can get like an Amazonian medicine, it's all woo-woo and, anecdotal kind of stuff, but there's so much data. Like I said, 40 years of research done since the 80s with the Kambo peptides, and anything else we can do now to legitimize it. I've done the Performance Peak Brain Institute in Houston. We did brain scans and body scans on people before and after Kambo. And it's fascinating. Up to 4 months after their first Kambo ceremony, they found that, like with the QEEG scans, that their brain stayed at a dominant alpha brainwave length. So that means people handle stress better, anxiety better. You can retain information more calm. And these are things that we have quantified, and their description to Kambo, which I'm not a huge fan of, their doctors, and I'll take it, is they say that Kambo's effect on the entire body is equivalent to a prescribed muscle relaxer. And that's 4 months after. So like you've done one ceremony and 4 months later, they're seeing that it just keeps you in a parasympathetic. And it has to do with specific peptides. They reset your adrenal cortex, your pituitary gland. Like all this stuff gets reset or rebalanced, which is going to help you handle things better. So
that's huge, and that's what I want to hear about more. So if I'm mistaken, you were telling me briefly when we met, saw you in September in Modern Nirvana, about breaking addictions. I want to hear about those microdoses. So you're doing really, and from anybody that I've heard of Kambo, you're doing Kambo differently with quantifying it, trying different things with your gentleness on it. I want to hear more about those use cases and how you're doing them. So we got the QEEG. I mean, this is phenomenal, right? So one ceremony, 4 months after, alpha brainwaves dominant. I mean, like a meditative state from doing Kambo. I mean, just hearing that right now, I did not know that, and I think that's huge. That's really huge. Yeah, that by itself, right there. Forget about the peptides. Forget about getting rid of candida and parasites and everything else that is toxic. Right there, just the state of being more in the parasympathetic and being able to absorb more and being more present. If people know what we're talking about, alpha brainwaves, I'll throw a link into brainwaves like a chart. That right there is huge. I want to hear more about breaking addictions, microdoses, everything that you got, that you're doing that is less common, that perhaps people haven't heard of when it comes to Kambo.
Yeah, with addiction, it's really intriguing because it's something that, as we're trained initially, which I understand as a safety blanket, they're like, stay away from anyone who's ever done drugs, really. If someone's done heroin, technically you shouldn't do Kambo on them for 2 years, all this stuff, because of how powerful it is. It can pull out things, it rips things out, basically, and physically cleanses you, and I think it can be too dangerous, which I'm also saying it can't be. It's just with the right support team and the experience and the tools that we have, we have 100% success. And I don't say that light, and I also don't mean that in an arrogant way of like, come here and you're healed. But at this point, we have 100% success with people. And we're not talking about someone who just recreationally wants to stop. We're talking people who have been addicted to heroin for 16 years and have not got a day in their life since for 16 years, not having fentanyl or meth or heroin in their body, to being completely clean, doing their last amount of fentanyl in the morning and then doing Kambo when they get to our house and then being clean for so on. And this is not something you'd want, and nor also, I think that's a great thing with Kambo is you just want to work with a practitioner who's comfortable and confident with what you have going on. And I think it's a great skill for anyone to have in life is to know your limits and not pass those limits. So you only want to work with someone if someone's having an addiction based off of their, like, what their experience is with it. And with Kambo, you're not going to really find anyone, and not because because there's a lot of caveats. And the reason I got into this really also was because the passion of Jill, because this is what she suffered from for, 25 years of addiction stuff on and off with different things. And finally, not that Kambo was the one thing for her, but all this other alternative and being able to be empowered as opposed to always having to go to NA or AA, just be like, I'm powerless. So one thing I really think Kambo, again, we're not doing just Kambo. So when people come with addiction issues, it's not just Kambo. It's a tool of every cool thing that I've basically ever had, and everything that we bring into it. But where I think the Kambo is the biggest player in it, though, is Kambo cleanses your body so effectively that it's going to push out the drugs out of your body. Like it's one of those things, like if you have a drug test, you could do Kambo and then go take a drug test the next day and you're clean. It shows you like that's what it's doing to your system. Like, if you have to go pee for marijuana use, like Kambo is going to cleanse it and it's not going to show up in the past or in your test. So I think this is very beneficial for people because you like the withdrawal phase of drugs gets bypassed. Like, so they're not sitting there for 10 days in the sweat and nauseated and having sharp pains in their brain and all these pains that occur during withdrawal. Like, that stuff gets taken out really quick. So I think that is a huge support aspect for these people because they're not dealing with that side effect of 10 days of hell. Like, the Kambo bypasses the withdrawal phase. And then what we will also do, and I think this is more, there's no like data with this, but it could either be like a Pavlov type of thing where, but it's the same thing where if you crave sugar, you take a rubber band and you pop your wrist, right? Like, to teach your brain that's a bad urge. We'll do that with Kambo. Like, we're doing full ceremonies on these people every day for a few days, but it's very sensitive. It's very light. You can't do, if someone coming off of fentanyl or meth, you wouldn't want to be doing the same type of Kambo ceremony that you did, basically. It's much more gentle. But if at 3 a.m. you're having a craving, they'll come wake us up and tell us, and I'll do 1 dot Kambo on them. So it's almost like it's teaching them that they get that craving, they're going to get burned by a dot of Kambo on them. So the cravings tend to go away. Wow. That's a huge part of it too. And then we just have other stuff going on. It's like we have body work. We have such an amazing team of friends and people who are so willing to help. The Lila Quantum people, Wizard Science people, they will customize frequencies with us. Like, we have a heroin, when we had our first person we worked with that had been addicted to heroin for 16 years, they created a frequency card for her. So like, we have all these really cool sources. NAD helps people, especially coming off of drugs. So we get them NAD patches or NAD suppositories or NAD IVs if they're available. Hemp machines, hemp massage. We have, infrared sauna. We have a finished sauna, a cold plunge. Help everything that someone would need. Jill doing yoga with them so they get movement because they need to be physically active, like, while trying to come off of drugs. Like, it's the whole method that you can use with these people that I think help them. So it's not just Kambo, and it's not just me, or it's not just Jill. Like, it's a whole amazing team of people. I'll reach out all the time. I know, like, hey, we're working with someone who's addicted to fentanyl. Is there something you can do, Philip? And Philip's like, from Lila Quantum could be like, yeah, we'll get a card made. I'll overnight it to you. Like, those guys are some of the most incredible human beings ever. They don't ever ask questions. It's just, okay, what's the address? It's going to be there tomorrow, and it's like amazing. So having that support is always important. Wizard Science is the same thing with Ian, always sending us products, sending us things that we need to help these people. And they don't ever ask questions. It's just, got it. How much of it? How fast? And that's kind of where it comes in. But in Kambo, it cleanses the system. So I think that's a huge part of it is making sure like you're not really going through a withdrawal phase. And that's one massive obstacle that you don't have to deal with.
It's awesome. I will share my Kambo experiences, and I want to get into your relationships with Ian Mitchell of Wizard Sciences and Philip, and talk about those companies and really about where you are right now, which I want to give you kudos. Quickly, I'll tell my experience. I did talk about it in the Q&A episode that I had. I think it was episode 11. So I've been keeping pretty clean for a long time, holistic lifestyle, eating clean, meditations, training, and not pushing too far, doing a good amount of things in moderation. I did get a sinus infection in February in Florida. That started in Florida, and then I've been living in the woods outside of Atlanta, about 30 minutes north, and I've been adjusting to the pollen in here. So I've been taking all kinds of homeopathics, and I think I've taken them too much, and I developed this really inflamed state in my sinuses that I couldn't breathe out of my nose, which meant that I couldn't sleep the way I was sleeping with like a very small pillow or no pillow at all. I was sleeping with 2 pillows for 4 months. I was mouth breathing. I'm still feeling a little bit stuffed in this environment. I kind of have not gotten used to it yet, and I've heard from some people that it takes a good amount of time or therapies that I'm not interested in doing. I am bumping up to the ones interested in allergies or pollen allergies. I'm bumping up my kidneys, spleen, and thymus function by taking ancestral supplements with those organs, kind of the like for like. Is it working? I'm not 100% sure. I do take C60 from Wizard Sciences. I was taking from C360 Health. I take a good amount of, not a lot, but I do have tools in my tool belt. And with Kambo, my intention was I want to get rid of this infection. So pretty much before I went to Florida, I was kind of going away, and then he came back, and I go to Florida and I can barely breathe again. I'm just feeling like not feeling that good, not getting good sleep, can't breathe out of both nostrils for months. I go to Matt Kaufman's place. He hosts a one-on-one ceremony for me, and the experience that I had was he did 5 dots on my shoulder. He puts I came fasted, water fasted too. So I drank the 2 liters pretty quickly, and I drink actually pretty slow. I drink pretty slow. I eat fairly slow, and I don't drink that much during the day as is. Now more that I'm in the East Coast and it's hotter, and especially during the summer, but I'm drinking a lot. So I already feel nauseous from the water sitting in my stomach. He puts a test spot. After a minute, he's like, "You're good." Gives me the rest of the spots. So I have 5 spots. Within a couple minutes, I'm feeling my head is kind of hot and my heart is beating fast. But I knew what to expect. And I'm sitting there on a cushion, kind of in a cross-legged. And he gave me a tip before that if I'm having a hard time to purge, which I didn't, to kind of just open up my body. And I'm pretty experienced with medicine ceremonies in general and good at surrendering by now, subjectively at least. So I was able to surrender pretty quickly. And so I was purging for 15 minutes, pretty much straight, just came after a minute or two. I'm purging it's liquids. I do see some foam in there, perhaps some candida. I did feel some candida when I was in Israel, and a good amount of everything in the back of my throat was starting to get itchy, and my wife had candida for a while, and it's kind of comes and goes, the overgrowth there. And anyways, so for 15 minutes I'm sitting there, and it's hard. As Todd said, it's pretty uncomfortable, but I've been in more uncomfortable actually states, I think, with just the way my head would feel, and I felt on ayahuasca and other ceremonies, and the emotional part of feeling it, like the bottom of the map of consciousness before, and deep fear, not C19 fear, just ancestral fear of Holocaust. So I came with also knowing I get a bunch of peptides. This is going to be over pretty soon. What's 15 minutes? So as I'm purging, I'm like, oh, this is good for me. So I have the good mental gymnastics going on while I'm doing it. It was uncomfortable. I was nauseous for 15 minutes. It's not for everybody by any means. But I'm like, oh, this is a quick one. I'm happy about it. And I see the bucket, and I kind of see the bile coming up, and I'm like, it stinks, but I'm happy at the same time. So the 2 things are true. I'm having a hard time, and I'm happy. So it went, and then whenever I feel like I want to purge more, I would just open up and lift my head, and boom, I could feel it. I would just move my spine a little bit, and I could feel it coming, and I just let it go for 15 minutes. I'm purging. Then I felt like, all right, this is it. So I'm like, can I lie down? He had a TheraSage PMF mat. I'm lying down on it. I was shirtless, just put the blanket on just to kind of, I wasn't cold, but I wanted to make sure that I'm reserving as much energy as I can. And then I didn't know if we're doing one round or two. So I'm like, is this it? Are we doing another round? I'm like, I was ready. I mean, I didn't really know if we're doing more. I had no idea. I was like, I can take more. I don't want to. I mean, I'm pretty exhausted from purging for 15 minutes. Like, oh no, you're good. You're done. And he had great music. It was holding space. It was shaking the rattle, which helped like that like holding on to the sounds a lot of times. And as I'm feeling the body, but like kind of like going back and forth with the roller coaster of the unpleasantness. It was nice to like use my meditation techniques, just putting my awareness sometimes somewhere else as I'm going through the hard times. But like, yeah, about 30 minutes from the time it started, I'm standing up. His wife just got home, having a chit chat with them. And he told me if I have to go to the bathroom for a number two, or we can call it a number three, like to crawl there if I kind of, I didn't have a number two there, but I do. So I get in the car and I was staying 20 minutes north at a friend's house. 10 minutes into the ride, I'm like, oh shit, like I gotta go to the bathroom. Like pun intendedly, oh shit, and I'm like, I'm there like 10 minutes. I'm like, no, I'm like, and I already get to the like, like if it comes out, like I'll clean the seats later. Like it is what it is. Like I gotta go to the bathroom right now. And I remember like pulling the car in and just running in and had like a good number two or three, we can call it. And that was it. And I took the day, kind of like the next few hours, to integrate and just be with myself. And I had a journal going on. I didn't journal a whole ton. I was happy with what it was. I had a meeting that evening. I had actually a couple meetings, had those meetings and went to sleep early, slept for like 9 hours and woke up with no constriction at all and got back to sleeping with no pillow. This is over 2 weeks ago. So been great results for me. I do feel like I got rid of some things that didn't serve me. I did not feel like Superman after, which is what Mike Bledsoe would report after he did his back in 2017. I felt good. I felt kind of similar to how I was feeling, but I love the results that I got in terms of the infection. I think it was an infection that was going on for months, and that was put to bed. So that was my experience. I'm super happy about it. For the ones that are feeling the calling to do it, I think it's, in my books, it's one of the best ROI ceremonies. There's an emotional, there's a mental, there's a spiritual aspect to it. It's less dominant, of course, than other plant medicines, but the physical aspect, and I do put a lot of emphasis, and I was putting a lot of emphasis into the physical aspect, even for spiritual development. I like to say, and I quote Dr. Joe Dispenza, the body is the instrument of consciousness. You're experiencing this life, God, whatever you want to call it, through the body. You can get out of your body. It's an option, but a lot of it is in the body. It's going to be with the emotions, with the coding, with the DNA, with the traumas, with the challenges, with the triggers, with the reactions, with the toxicity, with all of it. I mean, lifting my kids, playing sports, just hiking, all of that is within your body. So I do put an emphasis on the body. So that's my experience. That's my 2 cents on the benefits of doing Kambo and taking care of our bodies. So, yeah, that's my rant there. If you want to say anything about that before we jump into.
Yeah. And honestly, I couldn't be more happy that you got to do it with Matt. Matt is one of my favorite people. I love the way he represents, and I love the way that he serves Kambo. And if there's anyone you could do it with, it would be Matt. So that's really cool that you got to go down there, to his place with him and his wife too, and the way they do Kambo. So that's cool. And yeah, I mean, just to go off that, I think it's very common. We work with people with sinus infections, and it cleanses it up. We had a guy who just 2 weeks ago came back out again, but he had such bad allergies, and he came down with his wife to do Kambo like 2 years ago when we were in Florida, and he was like, "Hey, I don't need to react on this. I'm just here to support my wife," which is awesome, and people do that. And when he went back, he was like, because he was like, I don't really feel much. I'm just probably the same, little cleaner, I was like, that's awesome. Yeah, not okay. But he went back to where they lived on his farm in Kansas, and he's like, I have no allergies. This is insane. He's like, I've always had to take prescribed medication for my allergies, and I haven't had to use them at all since I came back after Kambo. And like, so that ended up being his huge shift. And he came back like, 2 weeks ago, he was here. He came from Kansas to do Kambo and, similar thing. But like the sinus is huge for sure. We see that a lot where people have sinus infections. If it's usually like a fungal one, like Kambo is going to wipe it out. Doesn't mean from one session. Now, one thing we should always tell people with Kambo is the cool thing is it can very likely, and then more common, be a one session, super powerful, super incredible. You could do one session and be good for a long time. But something like maybe for you with more of this fungal, I would do 2 sessions, 3 sessions as close as possible. There's really no data or science showing, hey, you got to do 3 sessions in 3 days or whatever. It's Amazonian tradition to do 3 in a moon cycle. It's like in a month. But there's, again, there's no science that backs it up. That's tradition. We always do 3 sessions as close as possible because people travel to us and we try to be financially aware of okay, you got to get a hotel or an Airbnb or flight, all that stuff. So let's make it as effective as possible. But the cool thing with Kambo is you don't have to have a pre-plan. I have to go do a bunch of sessions. One session can be completely life-changing. I see that a lot. So I just want to preface out with anyone, you don't have to do it. The more you do, the better. But one session is good. And, you talking about Superman, definitely not. I'd say the majority of people wake up the next day on cloud 9 feeling incredible. It's pretty rare that people don't feel amazing the next day, but I also don't like to create experiences for people. So I don't tend to be hey, tomorrow you're going to wake up and feel amazing. I'd rather them tell me everything they feel without me putting it in their heads. But you probably just needed another session or you were still detoxing from all the fungal and the candida being removed. But usually most people wake up and they're the sky has never looked so blue. And I have never been more happy in my life because we have professional athletes, the most elite athletes in the world that'll do Kambo strictly for how good they feel the next day. So they'll strategically do Kambo a few days before a competition because of the flow state it puts them in, the confidence it gives them, and the amount of energy. So maybe
I was talking about to clarify, from what I heard from Mike Bledsoe, I thought it happens right after the session. So I was feeling good the day after. And to say I wasn't feeling that bad before, I did feel the sinus infection. It may sound to some that I had a bigger situation for where I was. And this has been my experience with everything in my life. I have a very much of a gradual improvements. This is including ayahuasca, 3 ceremonies in 5 days. So I did have a great awakening. I was surrendering. I'm in full surrendering pose. I'm lying down. I'm taking it all in. It looked to a lot of people like I'm cruising. I got great upgrades out of it, but I don't, and it's based on my human design too. I don't really have much of a chaotic or big change usually in my upgrades. They're very much, I'm in the gradual program. That doesn't mean that that's for other people. I do a lot of small steps every day. So in Maine, my changes have not been huge. I've taken C60 and my whole life has changed. I've done ayahuasca, my whole life has changed. I got back from ayahuasca retreat and my wife looks at me and she's you look kind of the same. And I'm I have changed my perspective. I felt God within me and everywhere. I've had big experiences, but it wasn't I came with, my baseline has been growing in such small increments, 0.1% all the time. So, and I was so grateful to be able to breathe out of both nostrils. I think I may not get as excited about results as other people, or may not have as much maybe not have as much awareness as others into how I feel. But yeah, I'll leave that at that. And I will say on Candida, so I am tuned in into how I'm feeling. So I felt a little bit of Candida, and I can see that with other people on their tongue and such. So I didn't see it on my tongue. I didn't have that much Candida, let's say, to begin with, but I did feel a little bit creeping in, or at least what I thought it is. I have heard of somebody recently in Florida who's doing 4 ceremonies in a moon cycle to get rid of Candida. So she's taking it very seriously. And I think as you were saying, the idea is if we're going to do too spaced out, you're going to keep feeding that Candida, it's not going to get away. It's really about killing the overgrowth, getting to a baseline. If I'm not mistaken, that's the strategy. And I do recommend that. And I did tell this to my wife, but the idea of her at the moment of purging for 15 minutes is not of interest. So I'll let her get there if she wants to get there, or whenever she wants to get there. She's on Candida diets before. She's on different things. It would go into. Yeah, I'm not at this point in my life. Yeah. I'm not making I don't preach anymore. I don't push. I make suggestions. I'm reading a situation. I make a suggestion, and it's up to a person to take, um, to go on their own path. But that's the only thing I do. Is I try to be, and as you're saying, talking about education, when I get into this, is I get a good amount of education. I'm interested in learning how things work. This is this podcast right here, how things work in the universe, so we can become more whole and joyful. It's kind of what it is. I don't feel like there's much more. Just understanding how life and consciousness works, and let's enjoy what I see is heaven and earth with the challenges, with the C19, with all of it. It's all, I see it as a game. So I like to understand the rules of the game, how the game works, and play the game the best that I can. On that end, I'd love to hear about, your friends, and sounds like working with who I think are really cool people that I admire, and Mitchell and Philip from Lila. And I'd love to hear about your relationship or working relationship with these guys. And I mean, it's quite a shift, I would say, from biohacking. C60, we can call it biohacking. They like quantum algorithm, we can call it biohacking, but it's much more spiritual. It's much more connection to consciousness. And it seems like also your path has been going in that direction too. So I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, I find myself beyond lucky. Like, honestly, like half the circle of people I have is like, whether it's the water guys with John Butts and anti-aging and everything that's just the craziest of all science is Ian Mitchell. And Ian has a gift that he can explain anything to anyone and you can understand it. And he'll be like, well, it's simple science, basically. Like, it's what he says. And then it's like, the guy has done some of the most insane scientific, like, inventions for mankind, literally. And he's just like, I spent a weekend on it. It was cool, and he's like, I have NASA scientists that are working on things for decades. And Ian's like, give me 7 days. Let me help you guys get to Mars, or the crazy stuff Ian does. But I met Ian through C60 research, and I was trying to figure out exactly, I wanted to just ask questions about carbon 60, and the companies that were around at the time, they're like, yeah, sorry, it's just information, it's really sensitive, we're not giving out information. And I was like, okay. And I just started finding all these people. That one guy I reached out, and they're like, yeah, you can reach out, you can, here's the email to our head scientist, and Ian. And Ian and I's first phone call was 6 hours long, and that's just exactly how Ian is you can call him or email him. He doesn't care who you, doesn't know anything. He will spend 6 hours talking to you. And it's not because he feels he needs to or he wants to. He wants to help everyone. And he's at a position in his life where his experience, his education, his abilities, and his connections, like, he can help so many people. So that was my introduction to Ian. And then every other time we had a conversation, I knew I was gonna have to at least block out 3 or 4 hours, and we just became such close friends. I mean, coming out every month to either Florida to be with us there, or us go to Oklahoma to be with him, all the time. He's the one that actually introduced me also to Lila Quantum. And Luke's story has a funny way of talking about, like, with Ian, because he'll be like, Ian is the smartest human being. And if you have a conversation with Ian, there'll be less, no doubt. Ian is the smartest person you could ever talk to, and the most biggest heart, friendliest person ever. And Luke has a little preface with Lila Q where he's like, so when Lila Q reached out to me or whatever, he was like, the first person I texted was Ian Mitchell to find out, is this a hoax or a scam or real, whatever. And, it's like, when Ian says something's real, there's no question. You're not asking about it anymore. So that's how Luke got really involved with Lila Q. And same way when I got connected, because I actually got into quantum energy in like 2016. And it was to basically say it was a scam. So I went through with this quantum necklace, which, holy cow, is right here. I will just show it to you. I think I was wearing this necklace. It's called the Tri-Vibe. And inside it has frequencies of every micronutrient. And I'm like, this is a scam. I'm going to go out and get my blood test done I did it for about a year and a half, 2 years straight. And I was like, I'm going to get all my micronutrient tests done. This is supposed to give you all the nutrients you need through frequencies. And I was like, yeah, okay, we're going to prove this wrong. So I got a baseline for, I think like 6 months. I got a baseline of my nutrients. So I'm very monotonous eater. So I can eat the same meal 3 times a day for a year. And I was blown away by my results after wearing that. So I did 80 days worth of blood tests with baseline. And then I did about like 180 days with the necklace. And everything was optimal. And I took it off, then I go back down to baseline. Like, it was amazing. And that's when I'm like, this is real. Like, quantum sounds so woo-woo, and it still does to me. Like, I get it. People are like, that's a scam. And I have no energy against someone who thinks it's a scam because I was that way. I'm like, listen, I get it. Like, quantum upgrade can come across. If you try to explain quantum upgrade to someone who knows nothing about this, they're going to look at you like, this is a joke, right? And it's like, I know, it blows my mind. Like, and there is science behind all of this stuff with quantum entanglement. But that's how I got into quantum energy, knowing it was real. And then I started using legal quantum products. And one thing I have a luxury to do is, like, I love to test out these products. And then once I find what I think is the best, I reach out to those companies and I'm like, hey, I want to come work for you guys. Let me help you with marketing. Let me help you with getting you exposure through whether it's podcasts or high-end influencers, top performing athletes, and like let us have organic connections. And that's kind of what I've done with these guys and the companies I work with. And I work with them because I choose to, because I get to actually, every company I work with, I know them on such a deep level. I go spend personal face-to-face time with these people all the time. So it's not like someone I just work with and talk to on Zoom. Like, I'm at their house, they're here. Like, we spend a lot of time and become close friends. So I get to know them as a human being, and that they're just as authentic outside of this world as they are inside, which is important to me. So yeah, like Lila Q, Philip, like the stuff they're doing also blows my mind. And that was kind of a reality of like, you don't need all this stuff. Like, you go to Philip's house and their property, and they're just like, yeah, I mean, you don't need all this stuff, but we have the power inside us to create all this, but these help, but like, you go to Philip's house and he doesn't have all these crazy, wild devices, because he's like, it's just, it's in your consciousness. Like, it's conscious living, and that is more important. Like, mindset and consciousness is more important than some $30,000 cool device, so not that he won't like utilize it, but it was really eye-opening for me to see that and see how people like that live, where it's like more, goes back to almost like the primal hacker days, where it's like just minimal stuff. And like with the quantum energy, that stuff is wild. I try to like explain to people what it does, and you don't really know where to start. Like, what are people's goals? What do they want to get out of it? Like for me, the biggest effect I get from the Lila Q, most likely, I would say, is that I can eat food that I'm extremely allergic to if I put it under the block. And now that's not something that they're like, hey guys, go try it. They're doing research. Like, they're actually having, double-blind placebo clinical stuff being done right now with how does quantum energy help with food allergies. And they're showing that it does like an 80 to 90% reduction in histamine response to like everyone, at least. And for me, I can eat food that I'm extremely allergic to with no problem. Honey, avocado, crab. It's fascinating. So like, that's where I benefit from it, I think, the most, as well as traveling, the blocks, EMFs, even like energies. And you can go to woo-woo, but like we travel so much. We go very haunted places, and we put something like the quantum block around there, it would remove it. Like, I don't know, so you want me to keep telling you crazy stories, but I have some wild stories, like with quantum upgrade, where it's like removing haunted spirits. Yeah, so with quantum upgrade, my wife has a property in Chincoteague Island in Virginia, and where the house had been originally a funeral home. People were buried underneath that one house. There was ghosts in it the whole time that they lived in it. Her and her mom would always talk about things. The house burned down randomly, and then the second house was built on it. And when I was there, we were physically assaulted by an energy. And we walked into the house, and all you could visually see was mold. The whole house, I was like, this house is so much mold, and it's crazy. It smelled like mold. You could see it. And we were physically assaulted. I got thrown. Jill got pushed. He left the house. And when other people came back, they're like, there's no mold. The house smells fine. All of this. So we put quantum upgrade on the house. And when we came back, there was nothing there. It was fascinating. And they'll talk about how it releases negative energies. And Jill had done ayahuasca once and was told that the house had all these bad spirits and that there were bodies buried underneath. I thought I found out like how powerful plant medicine can be, right? Like explains to her that, yeah, there's bodies, like upset bodies that were, buried 100 years under there, all the Indian stuff. So there's some studies they're doing right now, I don't know if I can talk about, but like where they're showing ATP production up past like increases, they're saying that above 25% ATP production. It's higher than that, but is what they're seeing with quantum upgrade. And quantum upgrade is based off of quantum entanglement, which again can just sound so crazy to think that like what you can do. But we have so many like people, let's say like if you didn't have a block or something, you could email me a photo of yourself and just be like, I'm having a really bad day. Can you print this out and put it under a block? And we would do it. And we have so many friends we do that with. And quantum entanglement is what Lila Quantum it's also got the 2021 Nobel Prize in Physics was won on the research of quantum entanglement. But like what you can technically do and what they're testing is that they could do your blood work right now. Let's say not around any EMFs, check your HRV, dark field microscopy, calcium channel output and everything. And then get your baseline levels, and then bring an EMF or like, let's just say a Wi-Fi router into the room with you and get your levels. And now I could be over here in California and you're in Georgia, and I could take a photo of you and put it under my quantum block. And after 10 minutes, your levels would go back pre-exposure to EMF without you doing anything. You're over there in Georgia, have a photo of you with your eyes here in California, and it's affecting you in Georgia. And as crazy as that sounds, like there's so much research. And again, the Nobel Prize was won on it in physics. So, it's not just half science, it's really legitimate stuff. And that's where quantum upgrade, their newer technology and newer service is coming into play, because you can set up on your car, your dog, properties, family members, your phone. You can set up custom frequencies. So if you want to have like a sleep frequency at night, like instead of having to buy a frequency card, like you can just customize it. So it's really fascinating what Philip and crew, and even Ian is part of Lila Quantum. He's the science advisor. So he's the one that's like working with all these other researchers in Switzerland right now, and all the data you're seeing comes from Ian. So it's pretty cool.
It's amazing. Disclosure there, and I'm not affiliated by Lila. I have two infinity blocks. I have a travel block. I have a couple of necklaces that I started with. I made a good amount of necklaces and frequency cards for friends. I would just put like, for the men out there, testicles and prostate frequencies to support their testosterone. I have 16 quantum upgrade subscriptions and the all-in-one frequency bundle. So I send it to all family members, all pets. Everybody's getting it. All cousins, nieces, nephews, like everybody's on it that in my immediate family. So I'm a huge fan. I had Philip on the podcast. I'm a huge fan. It works. The thing is, and as you were saying, and I loved what you said about Kambo, 100% success rate. Lila also, with their research on blood work, they have a good amount of research and third-party experiments, 100% success rate. We cannot perhaps explain what's going on. We cannot perhaps explain the quantum entanglement. Actually, I'm going to link in the show notes to a great video that explains what the Nobel Prize, the trio of the guys won, pretty much the prize for, and it explains in pretty good in terms. It's a 20-minute video. It takes some patience and concentration. Actually, the quantum upgrade boost can help you with that. I will throw them a bone there. So yeah, it works. It's fascinating. It works. That's the most important thing to me. I do explain it to people a bunch of times. I'm not gonna get into it now. Yeah, I do actually. So a definition there. So ATP. What's ATP? You were talking about 25% increase in ATP. What is that?
Oh yeah, thank you. Sorry. So ATP is basically, it's like adrenal tryptophan, something I'll never be able to pronounce even though I was in pre-med. Adrenal tryptophan something. It's basically what creates our energy for our body. So NAD, which don't even try to give me that niacin something is it's a precursor to that. So it's basically what we need to live. We need ATP production to live. And on top of that, it's just an extra bonus when you have very efficient ATP production and additional ATP production for performance. And where we see this is where we have a lot of athletes very elite athletes that are using Quantum Upgrade or using LilaQ products to enhance their ATP production. One person, he is going for like the world record for the highest free or standing jumps, like a box jump, and a few other things. And he's using Wizard Sciences and Lila Quantum. He was a U.S. bobsledder, and if you ever see this guy, his name is Blaine McConnell. His Instagram is like Story Poppy. And he literally, everyone will, no arguments. He does the most wildest training ever. Like, he'll have like 100 pounds on his back and he's doing box jumps or straight jumps as forward and stuff. And all this other stuff is really crazy, but he's using the Quantum Upgrade on him.
Let's go.
He's also using Carbon 60 products. So he uses the Olympic from Wizard Sciences. And he'll talk like those are his two things to do for all of his performance. And we have a lot of people in the CrossFit. So CrossFit Games are coming up, and pretty much the top 5 in every category are on the trains. We had to go through the things to make sure that it's all like, competitive legal or all that, which it all passes and is certified. But there's a lot of people we can't say, with NDA, that we can't say are using the products because they also don't want their competitors to have the advantage too. But I mean, literally some of the most elite athletes in the world are on with Quantum Upgrade, LilaQ. They just don't post about it because they're not going to show the competitors what they're doing.
That's cool. So, I mean, just to summarize, so ATP, pretty much energy to live life and perform, kind of the simple explanation. And to differentiate, I actually was an avid CrossFitter back in San Francisco, and San Francisco CrossFit, one of the first CrossFit gyms, led by Kelly Starrett, who wrote many books. And yeah, I learned a lot from him, his wife, Juliet, and a lot of other coaches there, and try to move my body mechanically, and a beautiful experience there. And yeah, to differentiate between the athletes, there were a lot of athletes, CrossFit athletes, that got reprimanded for using PEDs, performance enhancing drugs. So at the moment, the quantum energy, and sounds like C60, carbon 60, and other supplements that are used by these athletes are in the clear. So just for the ones perhaps that are into performance and competitive performance, look out for those two. I'm going to throw the links in the show notes. Yeah, perhaps don't advertise about it before it becomes illegal to use those as a competitive advantage. It can be an expensive habit. So just yeah. Anyways, I had a question for you. No, please go ahead. Touch on that.
Oh, I was just gonna say, there's athletes that we work with. They're like, there's no way this is legal. It's impossible for this. Like, people are like, this is not legal. We're sport informed, NSF, like odd stuff we're getting certification through. Like, so it's completely legal. It is. There's nothing in it. It's all natural stuff anyways. It's just a perfect proprietary blend that, I mean, Wizard Science is basically like Olympic RX. The best way to say is, and you have to be smart with it, but it like removes your safety governor in your body. So how like if there's a baby under a truck, you initially will have energy to lift up that truck. And you're okay. You can do that once or twice in your life and you're done. You're good. But like with the Olympic RX, it like removes that. And Blaine McConnell won the world record on an Olympic lift. He was like, it literally felt like I was lifting a pillow because of the amount of energy it gave him.
Whoa.
And it's not a stimulant. Quantum Upgrade could be a stimulant. Like if you do it too much or you have it on too high a level, you'll be stimulated. But like with Olympic RX, I mean, again, people are like, there's just no way this is legal. We hear that all the time. And it's like, yeah, here's all certifications, here's our tests, everything, but it's that much of an advantage.
I actually want to touch on something came to mind. You shared in the Telegram group of Lila Quantum, the Quantum Power group. I think this is before the Quantum Upgrade Boost was available, and you were testing it, and you were driving somewhere or something at night, and you said like you had the boost going on like 1200 level of consciousness. You kept going. Can you share that experience?
Yeah. So that was something that we were driving from the biohacking conference that was in Beverly Hills to Modern Nirvana. And I needed to be there, and we made it one day. It was a 22-hour drive from LA to Austin, I think. And when it became in the late night, I was getting tired. And then Jill and I, we could do 18, 19-hour drives. But when you're hitting like 21 hours and it's been dark, your eyes get a little tired. So I started like clicking boost, and I boosted on the Quantum Upgrade. And the thing though is Philip told me not to do that. Philip's like, and he's like, no, don't do that. Like, you're going to overstimulate your body. And I'm like, all right, well, it's keeping me awake right now, so I'm going to keep doing it. And it actually, again, because I did boosts for probably like 4 or 5 hours, like nonstop. And it was helping me for sure while driving like in the backcountry. We were driving from like El Paso to Austin. It's just like no man's land. It's so mind numbing. And then you're at nighttime. So it was boost saved me, but it also overstimulated me to the point where I got sick. And they warned me of it. Like you're going to overstimulate your central nervous system. And I came in the next day like sick. So it's incredible, the boost work. Also, quantum upgrade, and this was going to be amazing, we'll go into, but like one of the experiences that blew my mind, it was with quantum upgrade, is they just did some studies showing that it heals like 100 times, 100% faster. Quantum upgrade is healing your body, like from scars and injuries. And I've donated blood since I was 18, and I do it every time I can, every 2 months, I've donated blood my entire life. And the other day, I posted this in that group because I was so crazy. This is kind of like, they hadn't even done the tests yet, but I put it on. I didn't do it on purpose. I was like, oh, I'm going to put on a frequency of like heal, and just maybe boost my blood. So whoever gets the blood gets a special, an extra gift. And I had it on the heal frequency, I believe, is what I had it on. And I was just, not thought of it. But like when they try to take blood from me, they're like, sir, your blood is clotting immediately. Like, we can't take the blood out. Like, it's never happened ever. And they had like 5 nurses. They're like, there's a Red Cross, donating blood. And they're like, sir, your blood is like clotting in a good way, is healing faster than it can come into the bag. And there were like
Whoa.
5 of them. And they're like, this has never happened. I've been a nurse for 20 years and never seen this. And all I had done was put like the heal frequency boost on me. And they're like, it's clotting and healing before it's even getting like past the needle. So you can't donate blood. And I think it's so crazy. Like, that's what quantum upgrade does, is to show,
Too fast. There's like drops freezing in the air or something. That's crazy. And I do remember, and I'm going to throw the link in the show notes. There's a YouTube video of you at the biohacking conference how many years ago with the derma roller with the allergies. I do want people to see the experiment that you've done on stage. Can you share about that?
Yeah. So that kind of goes back to where I think when earlier on, I was on a very unorganized tangent about LilaQ stuff, but is that it allows me to eat food that I'm extremely allergic to. So like for crab, if I eat crab, it's not, none of this is fatal to me, but it is, it's a histamine response. So my whole face will blow up. I get super itchy. My eyes burn. My whole nasal cavity feels like I snorted a pepper, and everything itches and looks like I have a bunch of bee stings all over me. And we found that if I put the crab under a block for like 5 or 6 minutes, it actually neutralizes the negative effects that crab would have on my body. And we were finding this to happen, but we were trying to find a way to like visually show people, right? Because we didn't want people to be like, oh, he's just lying, he's making it up or whatever feels better. So what we did is we took a derma roller and we derma rollered my forearm and we put the crab meat on it, and it just, it hurts so bad. It just burns and it like lights up my whole forearm. Looks like I have like 100 bee stings, and it just, it's so uncomfortable. It's all red. So we did that by one arm, and then we put the same crab meat under the block for like 5 or 6 minutes while Ian is talking about the science of how this works. And then he came back and did my other arm, and there was no effect, which is similar to me eating it or not. Like if I eat it, without it, it'll give me issues. But if I put it in the block for a few minutes, I have no issues. So we got to show it on stage at the biohacking conference in front of a huge crowd. And then everyone wanted to like come up and see the difference in my arms. It was pretty fascinating.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll link into that YouTube video. I have a question for you that was interesting to me. So with the haunted house, first of all, is this still in a house that you're in ownership of, use? Like, is this house good to go?
Yeah, so it's in their family. Yeah, there's no issues. And we have quantum upgrade on so many properties. My mom's property, we just put it on everyone, that we know we can put on their property and neutralize it. And they talk about how it just kind of like neutralizes negative frequencies and also allows things like an exit opportunity. It's a lot of things that like I don't understand. It was when Philip and crew were telling me like, yeah, you got to set up like legal quantum products there and it'll actually allow them to leave. But like we, for as much as we travel, I mean, I have endless stories. Like as far as like with energies, I don't know if they're ghosts or what they are, but like, Savannah, Georgia is the worst place to be. I can tell you that as far as haunting. Last time we stayed there multiple times, but 2 times we stayed at the Weston. We'd wake up to the bed just like shaking like an earthquake and the lights going on and off and like crazy wild things. And we go back there with the block and nothing will happen. So we take the block everywhere with us. We have multiple blocks, but the travel block stays with us in the car, goes with us too. But there's some of this balances and calms like all negative energies in the area. But yeah, for sure, like that was
Wow.
the most. Not everything's aggressive. Not all energies are mean or like aggressive. So I still have experiences. Sometimes it's not always mean, but like at Jill's house in Virginia, it's a very mean energy that did not want us there. Like tomorrow we were like the door, like we would unlock the door lock again. We'd unlock it like to get into the house. What's going on? Unlock it and try to get in the door lock. And once we finally got in, I was like, oh my gosh, it's infested with mold. Like you could smell it, you could see it all over the ceilings. And that's when we got attacked. And we were telling her family members, like, there's mold everywhere. And there's no mold. Like, what are you talking about? I was like, no, you can see mold everywhere. It's all black. The whole ceiling was like black. You could smell it. Made me so nauseous. And they were like, no, it's not there. And yeah, I mean, that was after we set up the quantum upgrade immediately after that. That's what they told us to do.
That sounds like a Beetlejuice experience. My question to you is, have you had these supernatural experiences as a kid, something you only got exposed to in recent years?
That's a great question. My first memory in life is, and this is weird because I'm not even in this world of things. My first memory of life was a ghost. I remember being probably like 18 months old. I think I was in a crib and it was nighttime. It was all dark, mostly dark. The door was open. So the hallway light was coming in and I could see this person just kind of slowly coming up the wall and then kind of stays in the corner and then kind of floats across watching me. I just remember watching it. Didn't do anything mean to me, but that was my first memory ever. And then I've just had very interesting scenarios most of my life where I think I attract energies. I can say it's someone's house and just like the most craziest things are happening. They've lived in that house for years and nothing happens. And I'm there. I come into their kitchen and every drawer in the whole kitchen is open, wide open. I'll close everything, walk back out, come back, and the drawers are wide open again. Or just little scenarios like that. Hearing people talking, hearing footsteps, or the TV turning on and off, not like randomly, or lights turning on and off, like just randomly. And then most of it's not mean things. The one it's mean is scary. There's a few scenarios where it's mean. Not always. I think things are there to say hello. And, people say it's just if you have like a bright energy, they're just attracted or they haven't seen things. And I have no idea because it's not a focus of mine, but I do know that like we have a lot of things that happen if we go to people's houses or something. And all of a sudden, like we were at Jill's grandparents' house in Maryland and we were sleeping and all of a sudden the rocking chair in front of us is just going full force. Like, and you can hear this thing walking around the bed, just it gets into the chair and the chair, it's just like, and they're like, that's never happened. And it's like, well, it was happening all night. Both Jill and I were sitting there wide awake. And, sometimes you just have to tell the police to leave you alone. But
have you communicated with these type of energies, these non-material energies before?
Not really. I've never tried, honestly. Like there's times where I definitely will be like, you're not welcome here. Especially like when we were in Savannah not too long ago and we woke up to the bed shaking and the light like violently shaking, like as if you were like it was something was underneath us kicking the mattress and the lights flashing on and off. At that point, it was like you are not welcome here. You must leave. And that scenario didn't help at all. It does though. And at times I think like telling things that they're not welcome here and they must leave. And like with Sage and stuff, like we have a lot of, we can go on to Kambo scenarios where we have severely depressed, suicidal people and they release things during Kambo and those energies have stayed at our place. Like one time we had a professional bodybuilder who was suicidal. Kambo is incredible for people that are depressed. They left. It was like 2 a.m. because they came on an emergency session. They left, and as soon as they closed the door, I looked at Jill like, "Ooh, that was a long one." And as soon as the door closed, one of our dog bones flew across the room and hit me. And dogs aren't around anywhere. The bone just flew at me and hit me. And then our bathroom door slammed shut. And then it was as if someone was on the other end locked inside. So, like, it was shaking so violently. And, it's like I had to learn at that point. It's like, okay, we're putting quantum upgrade on everything here, like having it on a boost. Quantum upgrade at that point wasn't available. We had Fluffy, actually. So we had Fluffy and then moved over to quantum upgrade, but FLFE, which was pre everything else. And then making sure that we had like the block and stuff in the same room. But no, I don't really have any like
I got
discussions. My wife is more into that stuff than I am, but I think I attract it.
yeah, sounds like you're definitely attracting it. I got the chills a few times when you were telling these stories. I mean, I have to say, I mean, pretty scary situations, And this is like a horror movie. Like, I mean, this is part of what comes up in this podcast usually. I have to say, I mean, I do not have these experiences, but from the work that I've been doing the past few years, which 5 years ago you'd tell me about something like this, I'm like, sounds like a little cuckoo there. But now, as I've been open and being able to observe more of these, what consciousness has to offer, which is way more than the material, what the eyes can perceive in the regular beta alpha state and whatnot. It sounds like you have a little mission in there. I know you may not be putting too much effort there yet, but if you're showing up in a bunch of places and you're getting these communications, that's what I'm going to call them, communications, whether it's the drawers, the mall, like perhaps a bunch of times it sounds like they are telling you, like, get out of here, or like you're not welcome here. Perhaps it's interpretation, and I've been working with different enlightened beings and whatnot as mentors and teachers. It sounds like they really, what they want is they want to be liberated or emancipated, or for somebody to communicate with them so they can transmute their lower vibration and be released out of those shackles. It seems like nobody else can perceive this energy. They're not communicating with them because there's no option. And actually you are being called to do something about it and spend some more, give them more attention and see how you can help them. I'm not telling you to go do it. I'm just telling you what I'm getting it in real time as I've been more open and releasing myself and really trying to let the divine speak through me as much as possible. So that's what comes to me at the moment. And it's interesting that your wife, as you're saying, is more tuned into it. But I'm curious to see where your path takes you in the next few years, because what I've seen it with also with our mutual friend Thaddeus Owen and a bunch of biohackers that they were into biohacking, and especially in the past few years, a good amount of us shifted more into the spiritual and being more open into what's going on in this experience of living and way beyond. And whether they're using plant medicine or quantum upgrade or just meditating and getting all kinds of communications, I do think there's some sort of I know there's a big shift happening, and Philip talked about it on this podcast, Philip of Lila Quantum, that we mentioned a few times. And there's something happening. I think we are able to connect with subtle energies better. I mean, you have a gift there, so I would definitely, I'm sowing a seed there to hone on this gift a bit more. What I'm curious, and we're coming up on the time here, what's your take on God, consciousness? Is there a God? What do you have any perspective you can share with perhaps your faith or how things work in reality?
Yeah, for me, it's a wild ride because I was never religious as a kid. I went to a private Catholic college, was intrigued with Mormonism and Catholicism and all this, like just the differences. And I never like really was into it because I was an atheist. I was a solid atheist probably up until 5 years ago, because science shows science, right, shows everything, that there's not something superior to us, and there's no way this happened and that happened. And honestly, like spending more time with my wife and with crew or Philip, like, and Ian, like, I still don't have a clear, I have a whole different understanding and belief system on, crew will always say everything is God, every good and bad, everything is God, and you must love it. And having that mentality has totally changed my life for sure. And I still am not clear. I'm definitely no longer an atheist though. Like I was the guy that was like, what is this? How does this? How are you so smart and believe in Jesus? Or how are you so smart and believe in religion? Like that was always my thought. Like it's very clear. And probably within like the 5 years last 5 years that has shifted dramatically. I don't have a religion as far as like Catholic or any of that. It's just knowing though that there is something much greater than us, whether it's a consciousness field, and that I think we are all connected brings out so much more of an understanding for me when it comes to like religion. I don't hold on to anything specifically like religious practice. When we were in Florida, we used to go to a church there and we were in the Bible Belt. So that was kind of a have-to thing, but I don't have a clear path on that. But I would say though, which has been huge for me, is in the last 5 years to even be open to it, because before that I was kind of judgy to anyone that believed in of a God, because it was like everything in science says no. And then I had to swallow my words on that for sure. And I know that. I just don't know what it is, but there's definitely a much greater than us, for everything. I think we're all connected.
Did you go through an experience or something that happened 5 years ago that changed your perspective?
No, I think more so just being with my wife. At that point, like under like her view of it. And then of course, like honestly being around Ian and Silicon Crew more, because they have that different understanding, especially Crew. Crew is Philip's wife. And she's an amazing individual herself. And like the way she talks, I've worked with her and her energy healing sessions that she does. And she started to bring that up a lot. Even then it was just like kind of weird, but the more I got into it and the more I saw, whether it was like traumas of mine that were helping and whatnot, but like her mythology of things, like I was like, there's something to this that I just don't know. But yeah, and then I think just being more open, like, because once I started learning, it was like, I thought everything was science. And I learned, back then 5 years ago, I didn't know what mushrooms were really, honestly. Like I knew microdosing and mild stuff, but I didn't know any of that stuff. And it's a whole new world. Like once you do ayahuasca, everything about that changes. I think you're like, you see a different world. You experience a different thing that you're like, yeah, okay. Most everything I thought was true is not true. And I think that had a lot to do it for me too.
So you've done ayahuasca?
Yes.
Cool. Was that around 5 years ago?
No. It was only, I microdosed it for a while through an organization here in California that puts on like microdosing classes that you like do like as a group. First Aya wasn't until about a year ago, actually.
Nice. I will share, and I shared it a few times on the podcast, but in case somebody that is listening to this podcast hasn't heard it before, and I'll share with you, I became an atheist at a very young age, living in Israel, and most of my family was perished in the Holocaust. I was very logical, very scientific. I majored in physics and robotics, and I was very much of a left brain type A person. That was like, if there was a Holocaust, there was all this shit, and all these bad circumstances. I'm going to call them bad right now. There's no God. I don't feel it. I don't see it. I can't. This is it. YOLO. I was very much in the YOLO. And then I moved to the States, when I was 21, and slowly I became agnostic. I was like, and I actually smoked cannabis for the first time in my 20s, and like I had kind of a psychedelic experience. I think those are psychedelics, especially now with the GMO that has gone on. But the psychedelic experience the first time, and I realized like, holy shit, like I've been stuck in like this narrow-mindedness, and I became agnostic. And when I went to do ayahuasca, I on the third ceremony, the last ceremony, everybody's done celebrating, they're done doing this. I had a pretty tough time. I come to just expand my horizons, see what it's like before my daughter was going to be born, and I heard about it from Abby Marcus almost 3 years prior. So I was looking for that safe and like good experience, and everything lined up. So it happened. And the third ceremony, I was handed with a purge finally, after I'm full surrender for pretty much 15 hours total of doing these 3 ceremonies, about 5 hours, if not more each. And I'm purging, and I nothing comes up from my life, but I start seeing visions of ancestral trauma, and I feel like the ancestral trauma that is inside me, inside my DNA, inside my body. And I'm going through still the toughest time that I've went through in my life, and I've had similar things on psilocybin since. And the ancestral trauma that I'm working through, and I feel like chosen to do and welcoming to do, as hard as it is, to heal generations and to help awaken and transmute the pain. And I felt God. I saw, it's not exactly like seeing with eyes open. You see a lot of things with eyes closed, with a sleep mask in those plant medicine journeys. But I saw and felt God. And since then, also, I just had a conversation with a friend right before our podcast. It's within me the truth that everything is consciousness and everything is God, including the Holocaust, including being abused, including the abuser. It's all that duality to me is that oneness. People can think that I'm bypassing some things, and I have felt a good amount of things in my body and of like the lower levels of consciousness, of the deep pains of this experience. But I do think it's for the sake of experience. We're here for the sake of experience, here as in the dualistic, we're looking at one another, and there are many more creatures and such. It's all of the same organism. It's all of creation. It became very clear to me over time. And then I got the confirmations by working with different teachers, masters, reading all kinds of high consciousness texts and such. I just got the confirmation later on. But the truth is within me that everything is part of creation. Where else did it come from? And to me, that creation, and I'm looking forward to doing this. I talked to Philip, who talked about retreats that he and crew are hosting in Costa Rica, Bufo. This is the one thing that I've been pretty scared of. And when I say I, is my identity. I call this the egoic identity, my Yoni Havana identity, the one that protects me from pain, and the one that God created, knows that it's going to be dissolved, resolved, however you want to call it, as the merging into the allness, the oneness is going to happen at that time. And I'm excited about it, and my ego is scared at the same time. But when I talked to Philip and I heard about it years ago, I knew that this is going to be the one. This is going to be the experience that I'm going to do first, at least. And there's going to be 2 ceremonies there. I feel called to do it. I feel called to do it with them. I think there's a resonance in terms of we are seeing and understanding a similar thing about how things work and how to do them with grace and reverence. So this is where I'm at the moment. And so I had this conversation with a friend who in his stage thinks I'm trying to bypass a bunch of this. He's Jewish too. This Holocaust feelings. I told him there's all kinds of ways to work through trauma, to feel it, to have understanding, to have compassion for our parents and for the ancestors. There's not just one or a few ways to do it. There are infinite ways to do it, and the infinite ways that a lot of them I don't know about. I keep saying the things that I don't know will always be the majority. So yeah, love to share this 2 cents for the audience who perhaps haven't heard my opinion and my experience with consciousness, with God. And I was atheist for years, the hardcore black and white person. Can feel it. This is it. Like YOLO, going to school in Miami, and there's nothing wrong with it. All of it is beautiful. Lust, women, boats, and if anybody knows the reference to this movie, Step Brothers, this was the mentality, right? So I went through that, and I still think there's beauty to it. All of it is beautiful. I don't know if it's Screw saying you must love it all. I think that could be hard, but I accept and see it all as something that is a desire of God to experience in the flesh realm. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the cool thing is I really suggest you have that type of conversation with Ian, because he'll bring the science into it, which is like fascinating, because he'll be like, no, listen, this is how the frequencies and vibrations, and they can get the different, like, it's really fascinating. So he can bring it more back into like sort of science-minded people. He can, that's what he does. He does talks on like consciousness and biology, all this like quantum biology, and brings it like to reality with science. And it makes it more like backed up for other people, like, to understand it. They can have a better understanding.
That's beautiful. I'm looking forward to it. And I think the really having the spirituality and, like, say the higher concepts and the physicality of things and the explanations of how things work in the material world is real. that's a real skill. Bringing the bridge and having the all-encompassing understanding of how things work is a real deal situation. So I'm very much looking forward to that conversation. And thank you for introducing me to Ian. I'm stoked about it. Yeah, Todd, thank you so much for the time. I know we went maybe a little bit over the time that we allocated in here today. Looking forward to future conversations, looking forward to hanging out in person again, and yeah, seeing where your path keeps evolving to.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I know I went on some tangents there, so I apologize to the audience if some that did not make sense, but appreciate it. Thank you.
I am grateful for all those tangents. I love tangents because I think this is where a lot of the beauty comes in. I'm not looking for perhaps, let's say, a one linear story, and I think that's where we find a lot of gems and get into those stories. So I tend to do that quite often. I'm sure the audience enjoyed all of these stories. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, lovely beings, I hope you enjoyed and were inspired by this conversation as much as I was. You can find the full show notes and all episodes on my website at yonihavana.com/podcast. If you are a man and you are called to do transformational work to become a better man, to find and grow the divinity within you, and you are longing a community of masculine men who share a passion for growth, please check out Men of Integrity by going to moi.community. Lastly, if you are enjoying the Yoni Havana podcast, I'd be so grateful if you take a moment to leave us a rating and a review on your podcast app of choice. The Yoni Havana podcast is a brand new show, and your support would help reach new people by rating higher on the algorithms. Also, your feedback would help me deliver the best experience to you as the show keeps evolving. Much love and a big aho. See you on the next one.